I Love You, Alice B. Toklas, Under the Yum Yum Tree, and The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight, which means a lot to me because it is one of only 3 films my father ever deigned to go to with me. She played, of course, Claudia Walters in Can't Stop the Music. Please welcome Leigh Taylor-Young.
I will.
Okay, we can be heard.
We can, yes.
Yes.
Bruce Vilanch has gone cordless.
For a change. Well, everything I wrote was cut from the picture. That's
Stop bragging.
That's pretty much true. Go ahead.
Okay, first we've got to ask, what was it like watching the movie tonight?
I don't remember that I ever saw it, actually. I loved it. I really did. It had so much for me. I love dance and joy of the times. It's a historical film.
Very much of its era.
It is. It is.
Sort of, and the end of the disco era, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
still,
But it had a
joyous.
lot of joy and innocence, believe it or not.
And what was it like for you, Bruce, watching this movie?
Well, it was like watching an airplane crash, basically. There almost was one. It was carrying June Havoc to her doom. It was a bizarre experience because I know how everything happened, I have all the background stuff, and I was part of all of it. And even though I left after the 345th draft, because we kept rewriting it to audition for people to play Samantha Simpson. And eventually Valerie wound up doing it. But so I left, and then Alan kept calling me a year later once the thing started shooting. He kept calling me and making changes and all of that kind of stuff. So it was weird. It was weird to see it. I mean, I think it has great energy. You should know that the YMCA sequence and the milkshake sequence were shot by another director who was not credited. It was not Nancy Walker. It was, in fact, they were a team of video guys who came in and did it. Because Nancy Walker would not have come up with any of that stuff. Maybe the thing from Ziegfeld, where the girls would go in the pool at Master Williams, that she might have remembered that
yes.
from her days at Metro. But so it was. I mean, it has a great deal of energy. And I was watching and thinking, well, this isn't all that much worse than some of the lesser Astaire Rogers pictures, which had inane scripts also, but they all had real style. And of course, this didn't have any style at all. It was just, I mean, it really all just, some of it just looked like stuff that they shot for the hell of it and put in there.
And yet, when they're wearing the Theone V. Aldridge costumes,
Well,
they're
that's-
for Milkshake.
For Milkshake, yeah.
And for the finale, they're
was,
spectacular.
Alan brought in Theone because he's a theatrical costumer. And also, the one thing I know is that Arlene Phillips, who had came out of London, and she had a group called Hot Gossip, which was a disco girl group that sang and danced, and the lead was Sarah Brightman. And that, yeah, she popped out of that one and attracted Andrew Lloyd Webber's attention, and that was how she started her career. But Arlene did that, and Alan had seen Hot Gossip, and so he brought them. And she hired the strangest looking female dancers I've ever seen. I mean, they were odd to me. They weren't like glamorous looking girls. They were in glamorous costumes, but they were weird, serious Martha Graham kind of faces. And I thought that was so strange. She later went on to do Annie for John Huston. And then I think after that she just said, "That's it. I'm back to England, back to the stage."
Watching the film tonight, two of the things that struck me, one was that the ice cream flavor keeps changing after she goes.
But the cone never melts. No.
Nothing ever melts,
No.
and it keeps changing flavor, which I thought was really
I
good.
think maybe that was continuity.
Yes.
Yeah. It
And
can't be the
also-
same cone.
And I'd never noticed this either. The Ritchie family song, "Give Me a Break," is they're doing the 35-minute version of that song because that's all.
Oh,
every
man.
time they do a shot, you hear them in the dressing room, and they're still doing the same song.
Well, yeah, that was Jacques' other big act, the Ritchie family, and part of his deal was he got to put them in the movie, and they had that one number that was shot in San Francisco that was this endless. It's kind of because towards the end of the movie, what's it doing here? It's like where there should be an 11 o'clock spot, but there isn't.
You know, it's funny, it was a cornucopia of all that, but I didn't mind a thing.
No, it's true.
Everybody was having such a good time.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean.
And the actors were fun.
Yeah. And caramel corn isn't filet mignon, but it's still yummy. You know, I mean, so it doesn't really have to all be
That's right.
a gourmet meal.
Exactly.
I had to remind Leigh that the man on her arm was Aaron Gold, who was a columnist for the Chicago Tribune, the gossip columnist. I was also on the Chicago Tribune before. I left in '75 and he stayed, but he and Alan had grown up together in Highland Park, Illinois, where Alan was known as Poopsie Solomon. That was his nickname. And so Alan always found something for Aaron to do with it. And that's who was escorting you.
Oh my goodness.
You see, there you go.
I'm learning all kinds of
And you left with Paul Sand,
I have no
who is
idea
still
why,
with us,
but-
who's 90 years old, and
Is
lives
he?
at the beach, and
Oh.
still works, yeah.
Oh, good, good. I knew Barbara Rush, Tammy Grimes, so it was really fun. That was June Havoc in the plane, right?
Yes,
Yes.
that was June Havoc.
With the prep lock.
June
She
Havoc
was
was
having
Baby
such a
June
good
from
time.
Gypsy, if you don't know the show business.
The real one.
The real Baby June was June Havoc. This was her grown up.
Now, I want to first ask, let me ask Bruce a question first, then Leah, I've got to get into some juicy stuff with you. Bruce, how did it happen that you wrote the original screenplay? What was the genesis of this? Like, did Alan Carr call you, or what happened?
But briefly, Alan called me and said, we're going to go to see the Village People tonight. And they were brand new, and they were taping an episode of Don Kirshner's rock concert at MGM, actually. And so he picked me up, and with Jackie Bissett and her boyfriend at the time, Victor Dre, who later became Dre's, yeah.
Trace the club in Vegas and the
Right.
restaurant here.
And we all headed down to Culver City to watch the Village People. And of course, once we got there, they saw Jackie, and they kind of like jumped on us like lampreys. And Jacques Morali took Alan aside and started telling him his story, because everything was on the floor. In fact, if you can find the Don Kirshner's rock concert, you'll see Alan dancing with Jackie. All of them dancing with Jackie, and she wasn't even wearing her wet T-shirt. I mean, they just wanted to be near her. But on the way back, he said, "I think there's a movie in this story. This kid, we'll make him American. He won't be French. He'll come and he won't have a writing. The girl will be the writing writer. She'll be a fabulous, but it'll be you, Jackie." And it was just like this was conversation in the car, and of course they couldn't wait to get out of the car. And so after we dropped away, and you'll write it, I said, fine. And the next day, my agent called and said, Alan Carr made you an offer to write this Village People movie. And so there I was, with him, of course, collaborating on it, writing it. And then it began. And this is a chapter in the book which gives you more detail, but that's how I got involved.
How different is what we just saw from what you originally wrote?
Oh, well, what I wrote was very smart and sophisticated. The only things that really remain are Tammy Grimes and Marilyn Sokol, and Alan just couldn't get Bette Midler, so he got Marilyn Sokol to play Bette Midler, his version of Bette Midler, and since I write for Bette Midler, still do, I was assigned to do that. But so some of that remains, and some of the stuff I wrote for Tammy remains, but not a whole lot else. I mean, this was a picture to give you just a small idea of how things happen. The character Russell Knight plays, who is the boss of the law firm, Alan wrote for Henry Fonda. And I thought, Henry Fonda's never going to do this unless he really needs money. And of course, it was a very quick pass from Henry Fonda. But the other fascinating thing is, the lead singer of the Village People was Victor Willis, and who co-wrote some of the lyrics on the big hits. And Victor left the group because he was the straight one in the group, and he thought if this movie will enshrine him forever in the Gay Hall of Fame, and he was scared, and so he quit. And he then, through multiple deaths and taxes, he's wound up being the owner of the Village People because of his participation in the lyrics on those songs. So the turn they've taken to the right is all because of Victor, who was also a trumper. But the really interesting part of this is, Victor was married at the time to Felicia Allen, who was Debbie Allen's sister. And I had to write a part for her in the movie, which is The Black Girl. That was written for Felicia Allen. And when Victor quit, Allen fired her. And she divorced Victor subsequently and went off and married Ahmad Rashad and became Felicia Rashad. So Felicia Rashad dodged one of the bullets of all time by not playing. And who is that woman, you ask? Sammy Davis's wife, Altaviz Davis. And that's because everybody turned it down. And then he had dinner with them one night and realized, you could play this. And she, to be fair, they had met in Golden Boy. She was a dancer in Golden Boy, and that's when they actually fell in love, and they got married, and she stopped working because she was taking care of Sammy. But so this was the only thing she did after that.
But she did a great job.
She was fine, you know. I mean, she
I was going to open with, so what was working with Altaviz Davis really like?
Oh, really?
We all,
we all want to know that.
Yes. Leigh, how did you get cast? And did Alan Carr have a role in this too?
I'm not really sure. I know my neighbor was Alan Ladd Jr., and he knew that I'd not been working for a while. And so Alan Carr, I guess, was looking for cameos in the movie, and he'd heard about it, so he suggested me, and it was just an offer, and I said, okay.
Did you know Alan Carr before that?
No.
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 What was when you did meet him, what was
Well, I went to his house, which was really entertaining. I mean, I loved meeting him. He was lovely to me. He was very quick, and I said, it was just easy. It's like, sure. I had no idea. It was very few lines. They were going to add more. I just really went for the adventure. It was an adventure.
Did you get to his disco that he had in his house?
No.
Did you ever go to his disco?
Oh, God, yes. he bought a house that had been built by Ingrid Bergman, and it's up Benedict Canyon, and it had like a den in the basement where I think she was with Rossellini at the time, where Rossellini used to go to kind of escape all the Hollywood stuff. And it was a small, but Alan had it decorated in Egyptian, all crazy Egyptian stuff. And he called it the Bella Darby Bar. Bella Darby was one of Darryl Zanuck's girlfriends. She was actually a Polish refugee from World War II who had survived the Holocaust, who hooked up with Zanuck in Paris, and he named her Bella Darby. Her real name was Selma Ishkowitz, or something very Polish with lots of consonants in it. And so it was named after her, and it was this very elaborate but small Egyptian disco. And we'd go down there, and of course, and every surface was glass, and some of them were grooved for easy access. You could just, you could pour salt in your wound there.
Did it look sort of like a little Cheesecake Factory, or?
Now, it kind of looked like a ladies' room at Caesar's Palace. Not that I know, I've never been in them, but the men's room is gay enough. So.
Leigh, how long were you on set? Do you remember what that day was like?
It was just a day, but if you notice, that scene had a lot of people in it.
Yes.
So it was chaotic, but it was great chaotic. I love artists, I love actors, I love the chaos.
Did you know the two older ladies?
Which two women?
Well, there are two women who come in who are San Francisco socialites.
No.
Well, one of them is Selma Archer, who was married to Army Archer, variety column.
Oh, yes, I knew.
And the other was
I
Muriel Slatkin,
forget it.
whose husband, Herb, was a big realtor. And Alan had this skill. He kind of created the Hollywood Wives because he would organize lunches with the wives of these wealthy guys. And so that's how he would have parties that would have all of these various groups coming together at his house and dancing and carrying on. Yeah. I thought maybe you'd encounter them because...
No, I saw mine because I met Army so many times.
Yeah, sure.
But I remember.
Bruce, who were some of the actresses up for the part that Valerie Perrine ultimately played?
Well, after Jackie quit,
Jacqueline Bisset.
Jackie
Right?
Bisset
Okay.
quit. It went to Olivia Newton-John, who, of course, Alan felt he had turned into a movie star, but she wasn't quite a movie star yet. And she she and her manager didn't like the idea of her and the Village People. I thought it was great because the contrast between her and the Village People, because Olivia, was so milky white, and in fact that's where the dairy. I wrote the whole American Dairy Association thing because for Olivia, because I thought what a great spokesperson for milk she would be. Of course, Alan had already turned her into a tramp at the end of Grease, so she wasn't exactly the old Olivia. But they toyed with it for a while, but then they decided they didn't want to do it. So the next person we went to was a Cher. And I asked her about it. She said, I don't remember being over that. Don't I do a good? Rarely it is to see a gay man do a Cher impression. But she was. I mean, she was offered it, and she just was. She was at that point looking to have a serious acting career, and she knew this was not going to facilitate that. However, it did get Bruce Jenner, who was Bruce at the time. By the way, I changed my name from Caitlin to Bruce. fun fact.
It all balances out.
He got in because they dangled Cher. We dangled Cher in front of him, and that was what he did. Of course, it wasn't. So then it went to Raquel Welch, and she had just done a TV movie called Legend of Walks Far Woman, where she played a Native American because she was part Indian, part Mexican. Raquel had a very interesting ethnic backup, and she also was trying to do serious stuff, so she wasn't interested in it. And it was at that point that I said, Alan, I've rewritten the script for 3 different women. I think more money kicks in. And my agent called and said, he fired you. So, but I knew him. 10 years later, he came back and hired me to write my first Oscar show. So he never really went away. But after that, it was kind of like open season, and Valerie was looking to do something like this, very lighthearted, but fun, because she had done Superman, and she liked doing that, and she thought she'd have a good time doing this. And she did kind of fit, it was kind of milky white, so.
And she's one of those people that's incredibly sexy.
Yeah, she's very sexy. She's sexy enough to pull off the taxi cab thing that he stole from It Happened One Night. Just really unbelievable.
Claudette Colbert did not hike her dress that high.
God knows, she didn't have that much leg. She only had one face on one side. She would always be photographed. They called the other side of her face the dark side of the moon. She would never be photographed, and just one angle.
I heard she had a hump too. I did. There was.
There was. I couldn't. The no-neck monster was another thing she was called. I really have no idea. But, she had, it may have been the hump that caused her problems, and she had surgery. She had to drop out of All About Eve, and Betty Davis got it as a result. So we have Claudette to thank for that, if that's really what she wants.
It was going to be called All About Hump at one point. Yeah, that was. They did.
All About Claude, which is another version altogether.
Do you remember, what was your impression of the Village People when they were milling about when you were, did you know them? Did you have disco experience? I guess that's a better first question.
I used to love when I was working on film in New York City to go to, Studio 54, which was a phenomenon to me. I just talk about people watching at the highest level. It was great. No, I didn't meet them that day either. They weren't in the scene.
Who do you remember talking? Was there anyone you bonded with or chatted with? Or?
No, the makeup art, it was just very predictable, but just there was a lot of activity, and very honestly, I don't remember a lot about it. I said to my husband, I have no idea what I'm going to see tonight. I don't remember a thing.
Something I always say is if people tell you they remember the 70s or the 80s, they weren't there.
Did you love the special cameo appearance by Leigh Taylor-Young? Did you like that was the way the credit came up?
Oh, well, I was shocked. First of all, it was so big, I wanted to duck. But I liked the cameo. I actually wanted more from the character. It was an interesting experience. I wanted to see, well, what's going to happen next when they go into another room or whatever. Yeah. I want to see what is that discussion going to be about. I was interested, but it didn't happen.
when we were writing it, I thought she was Barbara Walters, basically, who was very, very hot at the time, and we did have a scene with the two of them where he tries to pull, his whammy on her, and but it's so late in the movie.
Yeah.
Like everything at that point was a stage wait. Like, get it over with already. I mean, the Ritchie family, people sitting there for 4.5 minutes going, really? Are you done yet?
And it went on for 35, as it turned out. That number, that
number?
Ritchie family number. When you watch it, if you pay attention, it just keeps going every time. They're just, they're got to be out there somewhere, yeah.
It's happening off stage, so you know where you are.
Yeah. Do you remember Nancy Walker as the director?
I have no idea. I didn't know that there was a director until you told me tonight. I have no memory of the director.
She was Rhoda's mother on Mary Tyler Moore and Rhoda.
Yes,
and the quicker picker-upper paper towel lady.
I recognized her when you showed me her picture, but I don't remember on the set. But there was not a happy feeling on the set. That I remember.
Yeah, it was towards the end of the shoot.
It was tense. It was not particularly pleasant, or the way people were with each other. I pick up that. I think you can always do things better when you're cooperative and nice. You don't, but it wasn't a pleasant set.
It was, probably she wasn't there. Probably it was her AD who put everybody in. Because there was a lot of people who had one scene, Selma and Muriel and Leigh and Aaron Gold and a bunch of extras. And the guys were probably there, but just maybe not when you were shooting.
Is it true that Nancy said that making a film is just stringing little pieces of shit together? That's the quote I heard attributed to Nancy.
I've never heard her say it, but it sounds like something she would say. She really, really wanted to be a director. I mean, she also did a pilot that didn't sell, that wound up being She's the Sheriff with Suzanne Summers. But she was no longer involved. But she wanted to direct, but I don't know. I think she was a little too old, to have the energy to be on the set and make those decisions and all that kind of stuff. Because she didn't seem whenever in later years I'd run into her, and she just was, never happy about the whole thing.
Did Village People ever cross your path again, either of you, after?
Not mine. Other than I enjoyed them.
No.
Bruce, what about you?
Oh yes, Jacques called me afterwards and said, "Darling, I think you are a lyricist." And he had a show in Paris at the Crazy Horse, which was a big cabaret in Paris with a lot of topless girls who were spectacular, and they would lip sync, to famous people, famous ladies singing. And he wanted to bring back Eartha Kitt. Eartha was living in Connecticut. She'd been blacklisted by LBJ and because of her political views. And Jacques was going to bring her back, and he wrote a song. He said, "We're going to write a song for her to do." It was called "Where Is My Man?" And I wrote the lyric, and we recorded it. And I had to audition it for Eartha. And she said, "You do a very good impression of me." Because I did all the, "I don't want to be alone with my baby. If I find out you're getting paid for this, I will have you killed." So we got along great from that moment on. And it was done at the Crazy Horse by a 6-foot-tall blonde lady who looked nothing and sounded like Eartha Kitt. But then Jacques got it released in Europe, and it was a #1 disco record, and we made a lot of money all over the world. So we did an album with Eartha called "Where's My Man," which is still available. And then he said, "I want you to do the next Village People album." So we did a Village People album because he had a problem. They had done a song called "Sleazy," which he thought ended their careers in America because 2020 did a story on it and made them all sound like they were sleazy. So he was aiming this thing for the rest of the world. And so we did an album, and the title of it was "Sex Over the Phone." And there was a song called "Sex Over the Phone." It was banned by the BBC, so of course it went to #1 in England on all the other channels. And again, it was a big hit, never played in America, but a big hit around the world. So yeah, and after that was the last, and we put all the new songs into the new Village People, who were I don't think anybody was left. Maybe the GI and Randy. Everybody had left, I think, except Alex, the GI. And then I kind of walked away from it after that.
Why do you think critics came gunning for this movie?
Oh, because, well, first of all, disco was dead in this country at that point. They'd already had piles on home plate in Chicago burning disco records. It was big in Australia, which the picture did very well down there. But I think that was part of it. I think also it was because it was Alan, the genius, who had made Grease and made the highest grossing musical movie of all time at that time. And this was his follow-up, and so they were kind of gunning for him. And Alan, unfortunately, invited a lot of hostility. He was a strange guy, and he trash-talked people. And it came around to bite him, and that was part of what it was. Also, it's not a critic's movie. I mean,
No.
Do you think it's too gay?
it's not gay enough as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's totally antiseptic. It's totally sanitized. It's like Breakfast at Tiffany's. She's a hooker, Holly Golightly. You wouldn't know that from the movie. She's a hooker. Read Truman Capote. And these guys are all gay. You know that, but it was not allowed to be, and that's why when he says to her, "I've never met a woman who living with a male roommate." I mean, that was true. I was living with a straight woman at the time, and people. She said, "We have to break up the house because I can't get dates. They don't know why you're here. They don't understand that we can just be." It was Will and Grace, which we tried to sell, by the way, but we couldn't. Somebody else got to that later. Anyway, I don't think it's too gay. I think it's gay in the obvious sense, but it's so clearly steering itself in the other direction. But it's got a lot of campy elements. Tammy is campy, and Marilyn Sokol is campy, and of course it's got the old broads, Barbara Rush and June Havoc, and all of that. But so I don't know how you describe it actually.
I was going to say, it is, one of the reviews said that it is a film with its own ice cream flavor, and that's all you need to know about it. That was the beginning of one of the reviews. And it's true, there was a Baskin-Robbins flavor called Can't Stop the Nuts.
Oh, yeah. There's product placement throughout. Did you notice Dr. Pepper? In the middle of the counter, in the middle of the shot, there's two Dr. Pepper cans. I mean, yeah,
Saw that.
very busy.
I'm a homo, he's a homo, wouldn't you like to be a homo too? No, anyway,